Good morning. Today we are pleased to welcome His Excellency Anatoly Antonov, Russian ambassador to the U.S., who concurrently serves as the permanent observer to the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C. Ambassador Antonov's previous service includes that of Deputy Foreign Minister, Director of the Department of Security and Disarmament of the Ministry, and Ambassador at Large. A native of Omsk, he holds a PhD in political science and graduated from the Moscow State Institute of International Relations, MGIMO, before joining the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In addition to his first language of Russian, Ambassador Antonov speaks English and Burmese. Today, he will be sharing with us his expert opinion on the future of Russia-U.S. relations. With that, I ask that you give your full attention to Ambassador Antonov and help me in welcoming him to the podium. Ambassador Antonov.
Well, one thing I neglected to do, and I'm sorry I want to do this, this will just give our ambassador here a sense of some of the BYU faculty. Can we see, how many of you have been to Russia before who are in the audience? How many of you speak Russian as either a first or second language? Okay, so anyway. Yeah, any Burmese speakers? Please, Mr.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be with you. It's a great honor and it's a great pleasure to speak to you. You said that our colleagues have missed that I also had an opportunity to be a professor in MGIMO. Maybe you know what is it. It's a very famous Institute of International Relations, and I'm proud of it. And that's why it seems to me that I return back to my institute. I see so many eyes with question marks. And as I understand that you are very much surprised to see me here. And I hope that it will not be boring exercise. I hope that you were not ordered to come. And I hope that we will discuss a very important issue of our bilateral relations. I also thankful to the leadership of the Brigham Young University for a chance to meet with you and share my views on the current state and future of Russian-United States relations. There is a lot of media coverage of the problems in our bilateral relations. Russia's image is being distorted. I have seen publications portraying Russia as an enemy of the United States. I would like to make it clear in this respectful university that I strongly disagree with such narrative. From historical standpoint, our countries have never been enemies, never waged wars against each other, and our fundamental interests have never clashed. We have no territorial claims to each other. The Russian Empress Catherine the Great supported the United States in the struggle for independence. Emperor Alexander II and Abraham Lincoln called each other good friends. Our country supported the United States president during the U.S. Civil War. We fought side by side during World War II. Millions of our citizens died to give us a chance to live in peace. Each year, on April 25th, together with our American friends, we commemorate the historic encounter between the Soviet and the United States troops in the Elbe River. The event is one of the most powerful symbols of our brotherhood in arms. These few yet remarkable examples show the great benefits we can provide for our countries and the entire world when we join forces against global challenges. International terrorism is the biggest modern evil. Today, Russia-United States relations are in a state of deep crisis. Such state of affairs meets neither Russian nor United States national interests. Countries that are the largest nuclear powers, permanent members of the UN Security Council, we bear a special responsibility for international peace and security. Therefore, we must act carefully and prudently, avoiding conflict and confrontation. Diligent work, careful maneuvering, and active use of diplomacy are required to improve the situation. We will have to rebuild a lot of ground from scratch. We must save little is left of our relationship. At the same time, it's important to create favorable environment to intensify our bilateral ties. Russia stands for equal, mutually beneficial, and pragmatic relations in which there is no room for the strong and the weak one, the big or the young brother. We treat United States national interest with respect. All we want is reciprocity. For our part, we are open to a constructive cooperation to the extent the American side is ready for. In this context, the international community took note with concern of the statements made several days ago about the United States' intent to withdraw from INF Treaty, signed back in 1987. I would like to remind that thanks to this treaty, 2 missile types with range from 500 to 5,500 kilometers were eliminated. The signing of this treaty proved the possibility to escape the dangerous situation of the nuclear standoff, which back then was becoming more and more volatile, that the 2 nuclear superpowers were able to overcome the physiological barrier. Another alarming issue: the fate of the New START treaty is uncertain. Back in Helsinki, Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested to thoroughly consider a possibility of extending the New START for another 5 years. I wish to remind that the document was previously recognized by the majority of the countries as a golden standard in disarmament. We are certainly worried about the situation in Russian-United States relations in the context of strategic stability. We do not want to see the architecture of disarmament agreements collapse. International stability is still recovering from the United States' withdrawal from the ABM Treaty. Today, it is argued that nothing will happen to international security if the United States pull out of the INF Treaty. But it seems that the demolition of treaties has never contributed to improving international situation, nor has it ever strengthened peace and security. I would like to remind that there are many other problems that influence Russian and United States security. They include development of global missile defense system, prospects of placement of weapons in space, situation with long-range sea-launched cruise missiles and long-range high-precision systems, the future of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, state of affairs in non-proliferation of the weapons of mass destruction and means of their delivery. Re-establishing a full-scale dialogue between us with a view to maintain international stability is a matter of immediate priority. In this context, the results of Moscow talks of the United States National Security Advisor John Bolton have given us a cause for cautious optimism. First of all, I mean the possibility of a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and United States President Donald Trump in Paris next month. Regular communication between the leaders of 2 nuclear superpowers is absolutely essential to determine the future direction of United States-Russia relations and is a key factor to international security. Also, it is planned to resume in December the bilateral dialogue on counterterrorism at the level of deputy foreign ministers, as was proposed by President Putin in Helsinki. One can only welcome the statements made by Ambassador John Bolton at the conclusion of the visit on enhancing the coordination efforts between our military representatives in Syria. In our view, it's high time to restart contacts at the level of our defense ministers. Restoring full-fledged dialogue between our defense ministries would facilitate the stabilization of Russia-United States relations and would have a positive impact on the global state of affairs. Serious problems remain in economic cooperation between our countries. Sanctions are imposed in order to change Russia's foreign policy. As a result, our trade with the United States is limited to a modest amount of $20 billion. Although we have seen certain growth both in mutual trade and investments in the last 2 years, their volumes lag far behind in comparison to Russia's cooperation with other major economies. It clearly goes against both Russian and United States economic interests. The two great countries could achieve much more if political and economic restrictions were removed. I would like to emphasize that business communities of both countries are obviously interested in cooperation. The United States delegation was one of the largest to visit the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, which was attended by over 500 representatives of American companies. A high-level group comprised of captains of Russian and American business has an important role to play in promoting mutual trade and investments. The idea of creating such a group was put forward by Russian President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. Businessmen know better how to develop mutually beneficial interaction. We hope that their first meeting in this new format, to be held in the beginning of next year, will give additional impetus to our economic cooperation. It's important to support joint projects in those areas of our relations where we have less contradictions and more overlapping interests. It includes cooperation in the Arctics, science, space, culture, education. Even in this difficult time, we have examples of fruitful cooperation. In December 2017, Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked the CIA in his conversation with United States President Donald Trump for providing intelligence information that helped prevent a terrorist attack in St. Petersburg. On our part, we did notify the United States intelligence services that Tsarnaev brothers were planning a terrorist attack in Boston. Unfortunately, the outcome was different. We can also recall effective cooperation during the Sochi Olympic in 2014 and the recent FIFA World Cup in Russia. By the way, during the Soccer World Cup, our country was visited not only by leaders of many countries and governments, but also, most importantly, by hundreds of thousands of soccer fans from across the world. 46,000 United States fans, second place after China, who saw for themselves the real Russia, an open, friendly, and modern country. The majority of guests were genuinely happy and expressed hope to return. They had their personal experience of the hospitality of our people. This was a triumph of public diplomacy, which showed that all bogeyman stories spread in the West about our country are fake. Crises in relations between political elites can be and must be leveled down by developing and strengthening contacts between ordinary people, especially the young people, who are much less affected by the mentality of the past. Russian-United States relations cannot stay in the decline forever. The world needs strengthening of strategic stability, which, for its part, depends on the quality of dialogue between Moscow and Washington. We need to step back from confrontation, look for compromises and ways to reconcile. The goal is to develop equal, mutually beneficial relations that would meet the interest of both Russians and Americans. We are ready for such work. Thank you very much. So you see that maybe my presentation is rather complicated, but you see that I decided to be candid with you. I would like to explain you where we are, what kind of problems we face, and what should we do together. You see that I try to answer to very old Russian questions, not whom we have to blame, but what to do. I understand that it's impossible, you see that for me. Maybe you will find answer to all of these issues. So you see that the second day of my visit to Utah, I was received by your governor, an excellent, smart, professional person. You see that, and I understood that I took a lot of time of him. You said he is very busy, but we spent 1 hour discussing what should we do together, what should do our regions and Utah State to develop regional relations. And I would like also to emphasize the importance of our cooperation in education. I know that there is a lot of institute in Russia who would like to establish contacts with you, with your institute, as well as with institutions that are working on the soil of Utah. And you see that we have agreed with your governor to work together, and maybe we will facilitate our relations, and we expand contacts between your institute as well as some institutions in Moscow. At least 4 regions in Russia are ready to do it. And I hope that we will succeed, and maybe next time there will be more Russian speaking students here. And maybe you said that there will be a great opportunity for me to speak in Russian. Next time. So you see that I'm at your disposal if you have any questions. And by the way, if you disagree with me, I would like to welcome. I like it very much, you see that. At least we'll try. I would like to narrow a gap of misunderstanding between American people and Russians. And what I want, I just would like to see your face with smiles. And I would like also to stay with you maybe more than 1 hour, but to my regret, I can't. So I'm at your disposal.
Thank you, Ambassador Antonov, for the wonderful, for the talk and for coming and giving us some of your time. I would be interested to hear your response to the American intelligence community's insistence that Russia interfered in the 2016 elections, and hear your thoughts on what we can do to ensure free and safe elections in both of our countries.
You said that let's talk a little bit about this issue, so-called the problem of meddling into United States elections. You know the situation in the United States more better than me. It goes without saying. You said that there is a question maybe for you, but I don't want your answer. I would like you just only to think about my question. You said that if Republicans are still in power, and if we help them, what we will get? Will we get, you said it, more better relations? No. Mr. Trump made it clear that he's the most toughest president in the world who is fighting against Russia. Moreover, you said that as to me, as my colleagues who are sitting, you said that we suffered a lot of because 60 diplomats were expelled from from the United States. Who they are? One of them was my assistant, personal assistant. Another guy was responsible for cultural relations. So there are some guys who are responsible for memorial activities. So there is another question. You said that should we help Democrats to win? Democrats, with due regards to Democrats who are sitting with us, you see that, but they are angry at us. They consider that the Russian Federation decided to support Mr. Trump to be elected. So if they come into power, it means that the relations will be bad. So where is the reason to help anybody? So it's first. But okay, let's return back to the statements made by some intelligence services that Russia interfered into election 2016. So you see that, as you know, that again, Republicans blame us that we decided to support Madam Clinton to be elected. And Madam Clinton, you see that, attacked us, saying that we decided to support Mr. Trump. So you have, as I know, maybe more, but as I know, that you have 17 intelligence services in your country. I don't know, you said it. It's from your newspapers. It's not secret information. And as I know that not all of them said that Russia interfered in your elections. There was just only 3 agencies among 17. So it's impossible to say that there is a consensus among intelligence or counterintelligence services regarding the Russian meddling into election. Another example for you, and then I will sum up. You said that during the press conference in Helsinki, Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin explained where we are, and you said that there was a question that you raised today, what's about the meddling into your election. And at that day, by the way, there was information that 13 so-called officers tried to hack Democratic Party servers. And there was a question to Mr. Putin whether he could permit to interrogate those 13 persons. And answer from Mr. Putin was crystal clear. Yes, we are ready to provide this opportunity for your counterintelligence service. But you remember what I said in my statement? I said that we need reciprocity. Could you permit us also to interrogate some Americans? Because we have some concerns regarding their activities on the territory of the Russian Federation. Answer was no. So we have to decide who we are. Should we treat each other on equal footing, or relations between the United States should be constructed as a big brother and a young brother, as a professor and a student? So you said that if there is a wish to construct our relation on equal footing, everything will be fine. Then you said that there is a lot of gossips and rumors regarding meddling by Russia into your elections. What kind of information I have? That 13 persons, you said that, tried to create problems for your election. Again, I answered already. You said that we are ready to provide an opportunity to speak to them on the basis of reciprocity. Answer was not. Then we were blamed that a cook of a Russian president, please listen to me carefully, a cook interfered into your election. Does it mean that Mr. Putin ordered him, his cook, to interfere in this election? You see that it's just only question to you. I don't want to give you answer. But could you imagine that Mr. Trump and his cook, that Mr. Trump orders cook to interfere into Russian election? So come on, you said that we have a lot of intelligence and counterintelligence services. They are very much professionals. Maybe if we wanted to do it, maybe it would be necessary to give an order to our secret services to do it, but not to a cook. It's a question mark. You said that I understand that you would like to get more crystal clear questions, but I would like you to think after our conversation. And again, you see that there is a proposal from Russian side. Could we organize special consultations at any level you wish, where we sit in closed room? You will put facts on the table, we will discuss it, and we will come to a conclusion. What should we do together to avoid any accident? Answer was no. We don't want to speak to you. How could I persuade you that I'm not mistaken, that I'm right? without conversation with you. You see that there is one option for me to speak to you, to students, to try just only to raise some questions and asking you to think about my questions. What kind of answer will come into your head? You see that if, for example, there is a blame to Russia regarding interference in your elections. If we reject American proposal to sit together to study this issue, it's fine. You see that you can say, oh, come on, you would like to hide something. You don't want to speak to me. That's why my concerns are growing. But at this stage, when you don't want to speak to me, how can I persuade you? And you see that answer from American official, the just only one. Oh, come on, you know what we are talking about. But we have some secret information in my pocket, but I don't want to show you. You see that is in a very rude, form. I can say that you are a thief. I say, come on, how could you blame me that I am a thief? No, I know, and you know. I have some documents here, but I don't want to show it to anybody. Is it right position or not? I would like you to think about it. You see that what I would like to say. There is no any reason why Russia wants to interfere in your election. Because, as I mentioned you in the beginning, we have difficult relation with the Republicans and with Democrats. And we have mentioned many times that we are ready to work with anybody who will be elected by American people. So we are trying to do it. And if you think about my remarks, what I said today, that we would like to restart our dialogue on various issues, And the main threat to United States and to Russia is international terrorism. Could you imagine that terrorists can acquire with a nuclear with the weapons of mass destruction, or maybe weapons of their delivery? You said, for example, biological weapons. It's just only such tube, you said it. It's very easy to carry it in a pocket, but it's possible to poison millions of people. So is it necessary for Russia and the United States to cooperate together? It goes without saying. And it was adopted in Security Council a lot of resolutions in this regard, where it was emphasized that the nexus between weapons of mass destruction and terrorists or non-state actors is the growing threat to the international community. So it's all what I can say you at this stage. Thank you.
You mentioned that it's difficult to make your goals happen because Americans aren't willing to speak with you. And I know that you've had difficulties speaking with people in Congress and other United States diplomats. So I was wondering, how do you complete your diplomatic mission without being able to discuss anything with anyone?
I would like to return back to Moscow. You see that you're right. You see that, but today I would like to say that I have normal working relations with my counterparts in State Department, in White House. You see that yes, I have a problem dealing with the Congress. You see that I arrived in Washington on 31st of August last year. And you see that more than 1 year, I met just maybe 5 or 6 senators. Of course, it's not enough. It's very interesting. You see that if I see Democrat, for example, he's very much scared to meet to me. He would like to see Republicans, somebody from Republican Party, you see that with him. Moreover, he has to inform everybody that he will meet with the Russian ambassador. I remember Cold War. At that time, I was a very young diplomat. It's about, like in your age, you said maybe 22. My first term of assignment was in Myanmar, Burma. It's because of my poor Burmese language, you see that. I was forced, you see that. And you see that there was an order at that time that I had to report about any contact with American diplomat immediately to our officer responsible for security. And you see that immediately I had to inform Moscow about it. So situation has changed. Now everybody has to inform his authority about contacts with me. With the Russian ambassador, you see that it's very interesting. And you see that last week I visited California. I discussed this issue with Governor Jerry Brown. He has promised me to help, but at the same time he said that everybody will be ready to meet to me after midterm election. So it means Russian card is being played by some politicians in midterm election. It's a pity. It's a pity because we don't want to interfere in your elections. I don't want to persuade you to vote in one candidate or another one. It's up to you, for example, to decide who you will decide to choose. You said that it's a pity, but it's a current situation. You said that there were some meetings between our senators and senators of the United States. I dream when they will come, Russian senators will come to Washington, but this issue is not yet ripe. So we have to wait again the results of midterm elections. And every morning I wake up, I'm looking at your newspaper, waiting maybe again some fake news about Russian meddling into your midterm election. And even today I joke to my dear friends saying that today there was information about improvised explosive devices found not far from Clinton's house. I was scared that somebody could say that it's me who is responsible for this, because you said sometimes Russia is responsible even for bad weather in Washington and New York. I don't know how to dissuade you that it's better to speak to me, to discuss all outstanding issues. And till now, there is our proposal to conduct a bilateral consultation on this issue is open, as I mentioned, previous guy you said that I mentioned. And you see that I hope that situation regarding my contacts with the senators will be changed at least after midterm election. I hope so. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Уважаемый Анатолий Иванович, мы очень рады вашему...
How they will understand? Because you said that I like to speak Russian. It goes without saying.
Just wanted to give a greeting in Russian.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very kind of you.
You've already touched this
I'm
issue.
already melted. You said that.
I just wanted to... you've already touched the question that I wanted to give a little bit. You've mentioned how it's a large priority of the Russian government to create working ties to discuss issues that may potentially affect the domestic politics of both our countries. One of those from my research has been an issue regarding cybersecurity, an issue that President Putin has raised at least 3 times over the past 2 years, discussing an agreement whereby potential offenses can be tried by either country, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to ask that under ideal conditions of that agreement, under the ideal conditions that that agreement would be created for Russia, what kind of offenses or problems would fall under the purview of that agreement, of such an agreement, if Russia was to get its ideal conditions? Thank you.
I cannot imagine, first of all, you said that we can create ideal conditions. You said that frankly, talking about Russian-American relations, I cannot imagine when we can return not to ideal but to normal relations between the United States and Russia. As to me, you said that I was involved in this business a few years ago. And I would like to say that it's very important to agree with the key players on the international area on this issue. You said that I just would like to give you one example to understand what kind of problem we face. If you look at Europe, you see that, for example, Netherlands, there is a lot of dumps here. And if there is an attack on their infrastructure, you see that the majority of territory will be flooded. And you see that, for example, 1 year ago, we discovered that there was attack outside of our country to the Siberia and Far East when suddenly electricity disappeared in many towns, and millions of people were living without electricity. So I consider that issue is very important. Moreover, you see that again, Mr. Putin has proposed Mr. Trump to organize special working group on cybersecurity, where again our top specialists, including intelligence and counterintelligence service, could sit together and to discuss this issue. I would like to work with the United States to elaborate the special rules of order in this sphere, and maybe to agree not to attack each other. I understand that it's very difficult to verify such agreement. But at least without doing anything, we cannot say whether it is possible or not at all. So you see that at this stage we have introduced a special resolution on UN security in the General Assembly regarding informational security. Today I again have to confirm that United States at this stage disagrees with us, and the United States has decided to introduce another one. What I see today on the international scene, I see competition between the United States and Russian Federation. And I consider that it is counterproductive. I would like to be with the United States on the same boat, because we have the same challenges to our security. It goes without saying. And I hope that we will need a little more time when we can cooperate together. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Abby Woodfield.
So you said that I am waiting that somebody will start to speak Burmese. You said it to support me.
I don't know Burmese, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's your disadvantage. I'm like a former professor, I'm criticizing you.
I'll take it. So my question comes in light of the death of Jamal Khashoggi in the Middle East. In recent years, there's been an increasing number of journalists and political opponents to the Russian state who have died under mysterious circumstances. One example of this was the death of Boris Nemtsov in 2015. So some would argue that this indicates a loss of democracy in Russia. So I have two questions for you. One is that, would you agree with that statement that that indicates a loss of democracy in Russia? And furthermore, how can a country that does not seem to protect the freedom of press and freedom of speech under the classical values found of democracy expect to be held accountable by their people?
Okay, thank you. First, you said it from the beginning of your question. Of course, it's a death of anybody is a tragedy. It goes without saying. I remember that a journalist came to me with a request, what will be my attitude if there is a decision by Washington to call a place which is very close to Russian embassy as a Nemtsov Plaza. And I answered, you see that, I'm not against, first. The second, you see that, I would like to confirm that it is tragedy, especially for the family of Mr. Nemtsov. And I am against to use this accident as a card in political game. I totally reject, and I said that nothing will be changed in the Russian embassy, and we will continue working, trying to facilitate Russian-American relations, regardless what kind of plaza will be close to our embassy, whether you called it Nemtsov or other names. It's up to the United States, up to the Washington authorities to do it. As to the lack of democracy, it's very important to understand what does it mean. First, you said that, of course, we are a young country. Russia, I mean Russia, you said that, which we're just only 25 years old. And we did a lot to improve the situation in democracy in Russian Federation. We have adopted a lot of laws. But I cannot say today that our situation is ideal, you said that in Russian Federation, And I would like to confirm it today that we have to do a lot to improve situation. That's why don't be ready that I will protect the situation in Russian Federation and not saying that we have nothing bad in our democratic system. We have a lot of, and we are trying to do our best. It's about freedom of press. You see that I don't know what you mean, but you see that many events when Mr. Putin, Mr. Medvedev, Mr. Lavrov organize their press conferences. And there is a lot of journalists from various corners of Russian society are invited. If you say that, no, come on, there is just only a decision of Kremlin and they will choose specific journalists for such events, I will remind you that, for example, last year the first question was raised by Mrs. Sobchak. I hope that you will not say that she is from Kremlin. If you remember, she criticized Mr. Putin, my president. She criticized our democratic system, and there was appropriate reaction from our president. Moreover, he gave some instructions to improve the situation in this sphere. So we did a lot of, but we have to do more. It's our homework. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry, just because of the time constraints on the ambassador's schedule.
I can stay till you said it, till evening. You said it. There is no problem. I don't know about you.
Well, this will have to be the last question.
Oh, come on, you
One
said.
more, I'm sorry to cut you off.
They will be angry. They will be angry at me. You said that. They will say that I decided to avoid very sensitive questions. You said that. Yes, you're right. Yes, sir.
Your Excellency, the Russian military directorate has been linked to multiple incidents around the world in recent years, including the seizure of Crimea, the destruction of Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 in 2014, the Novichok incidents and poisonings in March and June of this year in the UK, and then the targeting of the UN chemical watchdog investigating the said incidents.
The last one, excuse me.
The UN chemical watchdog in the Netherlands.
Do you have documents?
There's been evidence in the news, and then also the evidence that the Novichok is produced only in Russia. So my question is, despite all this evidence, the Kremlin continues to deny any of these involvements. And so how are we as Americans and as allies to Russia supposed to believe Russia's continued innocence in this?
Let's discuss this issue. First, again, does anybody have any proof? Could anybody put me on the table documents on this issue? Mr. Skripal, for example, or just only one accident. I will take a few minutes if you don't mind. You said he was in first of all, he's betrayer. I am sure that there will be consensus between you and in this hall that we don't like betrayers. Neither American by nature, nor Russian by nature. It's first. The second, he was in Russian jail 5 years. So this time is enough to get all information about his activities with British and Secret Service. I hope that you understand it. So again, there is a question to you. What was a reason to kill him in such way in London? I just would like you to think about it. Another issue. I watched a lot of American films. I like them very much, by the way. When there is, for example, a roof, there is a sniper with an excellent gun. You said that, and it's very easy to kill a person who is moving, for example, a few hundred meters from this building or that building, yeah? So why should we decide to use chemical weapons to poison in such a way? You said that, it seems to me that whole Russia is crazy, you said that. It's very easy to use just only a gun. to throw it out and forget about it, and you will not find anything, at least if you look at your films, American films. So I don't understand, you said, the reason why should we do it. You said that other issue, that we decided to hack chemical watchdog, yes?
Yes.
So, for what purpose? We are members of this organization. We have access, official access. Why should we do it? Again, I just would like you to think about a reason why should we do it. And you see that, again, you said that there is a lot of evidence. If you remember a statement made by Mrs. May, she said at the time, it's highly likely. It's very interesting. Highly likely. She didn't provide specific information regarding Russian involvement. So we tried, and moreover, you see that some American journalists decided to forget about highly likely. She says, no, Russia is responsible. I asked them, what's about highly likely? You have forgotten about these beautiful words. So we need more proofs regarding Russian interference in this event and so on. No, it does not matter. And by the way, because of this accident, 60 diplomats of Russian embassy were expelled. And there was a question also to State Department and White House. Why 60 diplomats? Could you explain me? If it's not yet confirmed, even an investigation is going on, why you have decided to expel my colleagues, my inferiors, you said it, from my embassy. Moreover, you said that if you look at the situation in Europe, France, Germany, Belgium decided to expel just only 4, 5, 3 diplomats. Why United States decided to expel 60 diplomats? I failed to get answer. So again, you see that at this stage, we haven't received any documents in this regard. Moreover, we sent a few letters to Foreign Office with a request. Could you provide us with detailed information that could prove Russian role in this murder? The answer was no. Moreover, you said that we raised the question, could we meet two Russian persons, Mr. Skripal and Miss Skripal? And again, we even don't know where they are, what they are doing, what they are thinking. You see that. So again, these issues are very important for a trust between the United States and Western countries and the Russian Federation. And we are ready to speak. But I am not ready to speak just only to say that we are sure that you are involved. I also would like to say that maybe your institution is involved. Highly likely. And you will ask me, you say that, could you give us evidence? I will say, no, come on, you know what we are talking about. I have some evidence in my pocket, but I will not show you. So you see that it's not a real conversation. It's not a real discussion on this issue. Of course, I'm not a specialist in this sphere, but I know what I got from various sources. And again, you said that I said it in the beginning. I said you that I feel toxic atmosphere in Washington. You said that there is an attempt of some politician to blame Russia for everything, as I mentioned, even for the bad weather. You said that. That's why you said that it's high time for us to sit together. It's high time to us to look at all outstanding issues, including these issues that you raised today, and to discuss what should we do together. That's all what I want. Thank you.
Спасибо.
You see that, my dear friends, you see that I bring you some souvenirs. I explain you, especially Russians or persons who can speak Russian could explain you. There is a picture from the Second World War. Maybe you know Kursk battle. It was a dividing line, or it's a threshold regarding our victory when we started winning fascism with the United States troops. To commemorate this event, Ministry of Defense has decided to print these pictures on T-shirts. T-shirts. I bring it to you. Maybe you will play tennis using these T-shirts, or maybe it will be useful for wedding ceremony. I don't know. It's up to you to decide, because it's our first meeting. I don't know. You said it to my regret. You said that please don't be angry again at me. It will be not enough for everybody. Because I couldn't imagine how many students will be with me. But I took, how many? Just only 50. Just only 50. And next time, if I'm invited, you said that I will bring more. You said that for you, for your memory about my visit to your institution. I will keep to your professors, and they will decide whom to give.